Welcome to the Heal Your Heartbreak podcast with your host, Breakup Bestie, aka me, Kendra. Breakups are hard, but you don't have to do it alone. Each week, I will be taking you through a different topic as it relates to breaking up, healing from heartbreak, growing in your single life, dating, and getting back into happier and healthier relationships. The goal of this show is to provide support, hope, tips, and to remind you that above all, this too shall pass. Welcome to episode 22 of the Heal Your Heartbreak podcast. And the number 22, of course, always reminds me of Taylor Swift. So just want to remind you, if you have not listened to her new album, and if you need a good cry to help release all of your breakup feelings, definitely head over and listen to her album. She never disappoints with breakup songs. If you need any recommendations, the song Exile by her and Bon Iver is my absolute favorite. So anyways, today I am doing another listener advice episode. And oftentimes when breakups happen, we can see it coming. We may deny that it's coming, but we can see that it's coming. Whether the communication's off, the other person feels shut down, maybe there's a wall up, maybe something extreme like infidelity happens. But sometimes when a breakup hits, it completely blindsides us and we do not see it coming. And it essentially feels like we've been hit by a truck. It just comes so much out of nowhere. And today, on the listener advice episode, I had a woman write in about her breakup, and I am just going to read what she wrote. So her and her ex broke up only a couple weeks ago, and they were together a little bit over a year. So I'm going to read what she wrote. And this is answering the question, what happened with your breakup? And she wrote, to be completely honest, I have absolutely no idea what caused the breakup other than it was out of nowhere when he sat me down to tell me he could not see a future with me. We had an incredible and loving relationship the entire time, or so I thought. Before the breakup, we recently went on a short romantic vacation together, and there he verbalized his ideas of our future wedding/marriage and discussed many other things pertaining to our future together. Now I am left more confused than ever after he most recently said he simply could not see a future with me and also mentioned he had been feeling that way for a while. We have not spoken or had any other form of contact since the breakup. I know these breakups, where they come out of nowhere, are so incredibly painful. I have actually been on both sides of this kind of a breakup. I have been dumped for this exact reason, and I have actually had to break up with someone for this reason where I knew when I did it, it was going to seem like it was coming out of nowhere. So I can definitely relate to this. And what she needed help with is, she wrote, I was left completely devastated and blindsided. How do I go about not ever knowing what went so wrong out of nowhere? And she asked another question, but I'm going to get to that a little bit later in the episode. So today I'm going to focus on how do you deal with a breakup that came out of nowhere? How do you deal with being blindsided so dang much? And a lot of this stuff is going to be similar to the recommendations I give for any kind of breakup, but there definitely are some things that are specific to this kind of a thing. And you'll probably actually notice some similarities if you've already listened to the no closure episode, because there definitely is some overlap on how do you deal with a breakup with no closure? How do you deal with a breakup that you couldn't see coming and you don't know why it happened? So I'm going to go over, as usual, I'm going to hit a few points on this and share on each of them. So the first one is allow yourself to go through the wide range of emotions. Now, as we all know, when we go through a breakup, we're already going through a pretty wide range of emotions. And they're obviously very, very intense, these feelings that come up. But I think especially in a breakup that you're blindsided, it can be even worse. So the first thing you're probably going to go into is shock. And the other emotions might not actually hit for a little while, because at first your body like literally feels like it's in shock. I remember when it happened to me, I immediately felt physical pain, felt like I had got the wind knocked out of me. I felt sick to my stomach. I had a very physical reaction at first because, yeah, it felt like I got hit by a truck. So after that shock subsides, then you're going to go through anger, sadness, confusion, feeling really lost, feeling super hopeless, wanting to, hop into that investigator role. So it's so important to allow those to happen and not to should yourself out of certain feelings. I should not be feeling this way. I should be feeling this way. Whatever you're feeling is completely normal, and whatever you're feeling is very natural. And if your feelings feel super, super intense, that is also normal. That's also okay. And that's why it's really important to always make sure you have an outlet for those feelings, whether that is your handy dandy journal that I talk about literally every single week, or that's calling a friend when those feelings come up. But it's really important to have an outlet for that, because I remember when it happened to me, when, anger hit, it was really gnarly. When the sadness hit, it was so low. So feel them, but also make sure that you have that outlet for it. So the second point is work on getting into acceptance, which is not, it's not like a fun thing to have to accept, obviously. It's a lot easier to accept the things that we would like to believe to be true. When we have to accept something that really sucks for us, it makes it a lot harder. And remember the fact that accepting does not mean approving. I used to believe that in order to accept a situation, I had to approve of it. So if I didn't approve of it, I got stuck in that place of not accepting and judging and all of those things. So you can accept that it happened without approving the behavior. So you don't have to approve of the fact that your ex dumped you out of nowhere. But for your own interest and for your own well-being, your own sanity, your own peace of mind, I cannot stress how important it is to accept the situation as it happened. And the sad truth is that sometimes people's feelings just change. And it could have been sparked by a number of things, but it also could have been sparked by absolutely nothing. Sometimes our hearts just change directions out of nowhere. And to illustrate this, I want you to think back on, maybe it was a relationship, maybe it was a friendship, maybe it was a job, maybe it was like your favorite food. But think of a time where you were so into something and then your feelings just changed. That happens a lot of the time. And we can't necessarily explain the rhyme or reason to it. And it doesn't mean that we all of a sudden went from love to hate, or we went from wanting someone in our lives to like, please get as far away from me as possible. Sometimes when we love someone, that can just go away. And it doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it that it's okay. It's a very sad situation to have to go through. But instead of trying to figure it all out, your best bet is going to be to go straight into working on acceptance. And I'm not going to say go straight into acceptance because that's impossible, but go straight into working on acceptance. And every time you get caught in that thought pattern of, why is this happening to me? Why did they do this? I just want you to bring it back to, I accept this situation as it is. I do not approve of this situation as it is, but I do accept it. And you're accepting it not for the other person's sake, but you're accepting it for your own sake, so you are actually able to move on. And I think it'd be very beneficial for you to write about some experiences when your feelings change, just to show you that it can happen. When it happens to us, it hurts so much, but just remember, like, there were times in your life that your feelings probably changed, and, you know, think of like the feelings that were going on, or think about what happened. And I think that will help you realize that it's not some like super personal decision at you. I wanted to pop on here and interrupt the episode for a hot second and remind you that if you are going through a breakup or are still struggling with a past breakup, I have a step-by-step system to help you heal your heartbreak. I know oftentimes after a breakup, we feel completely blindsided and totally paralyzed and have zero idea how to move forward. With my online course, I take all of the guesswork out and show you exactly how you can move forward in your life and let go of your ex. I can promise you there is an easier way to go through a breakup, and it costs a lot less than what you're probably already spending trying to feel better. To learn more, go to healyourBreakupCourse.com. And as a special offer to my incredible podcast listeners, use the code PODCAST for $25 off the course price. Now back to the episode. And the third thing to think about is stay in your own lane. When we are dealing with a situation that we don't understand, it's super natural for us to want to figure out the unknown, like find pieces of information that will help explain it to us. Our brain wants answers, so we want to like rationalize it. We want to figure out exactly why. So in order to do this, we will go on social media and try to see like if they're hanging out with someone else, because at least if we knew that they were with someone new, it would make sense to us why they broke up with us. Or we want to ask mutual friends, hey, how are they doing? And if we think in our heads, oh, they're doing great, oh, I didn't mean anything to them. So even if the answers we're looking for are going to hurt us, we still have this like very intense need to find them. But I just have to remind you that all of that time that you are spending trying to make sense of the situation, and all that time that even if you're not, externally looking on social media or asking friends, I bet that you're in your own head analyzing every single conversation that you guys ever had, or every single interaction that you guys had, because you're trying so desperately to figure out like, oh, this is where it went wrong, or if I would have zigged instead of zagged, this wouldn't have ended. So we have this obsession that we're trying to fill in these missing pieces that we can't grasp. But all of the time that you're spending doing that, you are taking away from the time to actually give to yourselves to make sure that you are able to feel better and heal. By finding that information, it's not going to change anything. Your best use of your time and energy is putting it back into yourself so you can heal from this heartbreak. The next thing is, do not chase after them and try to convince them to stay. When we feel like a relationship was great and amazing and perfect, and then it ends, we feel this need, I know because I've done this, we feel this need to like convince them and remind them like, we have a great relationship, we have so much fun together, we have the best conversations, and we feel the need to like try to let them know that, so therefore they will somehow change their mind and come back to us. So we try to convince them that they made a mistake, or we try to give these reminders of how great we were together. But this has two very negative consequences. The first being that it will drag the breakup on. You guys have heard me talk about this so much, especially with no contact. But anytime that you reach out, and the more time you spend reaching out, trying to get them to change their mind, or just trying to put yourself in front of them so they can like so you can spark memories, or whatever we're trying to do to manipulate the situation, or the more time that we use holding on to hope that things are going to change in the future and they're going to come back, is, again, all time that we are not moving on, all time that we're not using to heal. So this will just drag the breakup on longer. This will just make the pain last longer. So it's just not a great use of your time or your heart. And the second negative consequence of, chasing after them and trying to convince them otherwise is it will really hurt your self-esteem. Self-esteem is one of the number one things that we need to work on growing after a breakup, because breakups are a pretty big self-esteem crusher. So if you are begging and pleading and trying to convince someone to want to be with you, what do you think that does to your self-esteem? It does not make it better. It makes it worse. It puts us into this feeling of being desperate. And I've talked to so many women and have been that woman. It feels really icky, but when we get caught in it, it feels like it takes over. So that's why it's just good to not even start trying to do that. And keep reminding yourself, do you want to be with someone that you have to convince to be with you? I don't think we want to do that. So do not chase, do not try to convince, do not try to manipulate the situation so they can remember how great the relationship is. Again, this comes back to acceptance. We need to accept and move on. And I'm not saying all of this because I'm trying to tell you to suck it up. I'm not doing that at all. If you've listened to me at all, you know I'm not a suck it up kind of a person. I'm very much all of your feelings are valid, move through your feelings. But my ultimate goal is to get you to heal from your breakup, heal your heartbreak, as it says in the title. And I know the things that are going to prevent you from doing that. So it's so important to me to relay that to you and try to be that guide that can, shine the light in front of you and say, please don't fall into that pothole, because I know the damages that can be caused from it. So I'm not saying this to tell you to suck it up, your ex did what he did, so what? No, what your ex did is hard and it's painful and it hurts you, and that's okay. But I just want you to focus on you so you can heal. And then the last thing is, I want you to nail it into your head that this is a blessing in disguise. And whether you are religious or not, I wouldn't consider myself religious, but I love this saying that God does for us what we can't do for ourselves. And oftentimes these blindsiding moments turn into the most beautiful thing later on. And maybe this is, a gift from the universe to take this particular person out of your life because there's someone 10 times better out there for you. You might think this relationship was perfect, but think that there could be something 10 times better out there for you. And this was a gift that it was removed. We can't picture the future. I mean, we just can't, we're not fortune tellers, but I always try to remember that when I'm going through something painful, is that it usually means that there's something really, really beautiful coming my way. And I'm currently reading Untamed by Glennon Doyle, which if you haven't read it, I highly, highly recommend. And the other night I read a part about how we have to allow things to burn, or in this case, to leave, in order for something to be built. We can't have something new come in unless we clear space for it. So, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but what really helps me when I'm going through something tough is I just think back in my head, and a lot of times I write it down. I think back on what are other times in my life where I felt like I was brought to my knees and was in so much pain, and what came out of that. I have so many examples and I have so much proof in my life that things always work out for the best. And if I can just remember that, and if you don't have examples in your life for that, you can borrow mine. I mean, from all the breakups I went through to, hitting rock bottom with alcoholism to going through an assault, all of those things have brought the most beautiful things into my life. But I can't tell you the importance of, even if you don't really believe it, just keep it in the back of your head and just be willing to maybe think that it's true. Even the tiniest grain of hope in this scenario can help tremendously with our emotions. So those are the 4 things, or actually I should say those are the 5 things that I want you to remember and to implement if you have just been blindsided by a breakup. And the woman who submitted it, she submitted one more question that I wanted to touch on before I wrap up. She said, since he told me he had felt those feelings that he could not see a future together for a while, is it possible that he fabricated those statements on his wants for marriage? So basically, because he ended up breaking up with me, does that mean he was lying when he said he wanted a marriage? And this is a very, very common mistake I see so many people make. They assume that if someone breaks up with us, it voids out everything that they said during the relationship. It makes every time they said, I love you, feel like a lie. It makes every future plan they talked about feel like a total scam. I get why we think that. We think, how could someone hurt us so badly who maybe a month or a week ago was saying, I love you, and saying how much they were excited for our lives together? But the truth is that's not true at all. Like I mentioned earlier, sometimes people's feelings just change, and oftentimes they don't even know why their feelings changed. And there are a million things that could be going on in their mind to cause this change, but by no means does that mean that everything they said before this isn't true. My guess is they loved you very much for a time and could very much see a future together until that change hit. And not to mention, it's just not good to go there anyway, because how would that help us knowing that it was a lie? It wouldn't at all. And so our best thing we can do is assume positive intentions and assume that they loved us, because I have found that most people are not going to be making plans like that if they don't really feel that in the moment. So all we're doing by going through in our brains and voiding out all of those loving things that they said is we're just hurting ourselves more. And we don't need to do that right now. We need to do everything that we can to build ourselves up and not things that are going to tear ourselves down. And everything I mentioned in here is, a lot of it is going to be an awareness thing. So if you catch yourself going on social media, searching for these answers, or getting really into analyzing why they would have done this, you can catch yourself and say, for right now, we're not going to go there. Right now, I'm going to ask myself, what do I need in order to heal and feel better? And we're going to do that instead. I know this is so painful, and I want to give you a very big hug through whatever you're listening to this on. And I hope these tips will help. They have worked very well for me in the past, and I will see you guys again next week. If you would like to submit your breakup story, you can do that. There is a link on my Instagram where you fill out an anonymous. I never know who actually submits these, an anonymous form, and maybe I will go through your breakup on the podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you loved it, I hope you'll leave me a review and share with your friends. If you're interested in learning more about my course, Heal Your Breakup, where I take you step by step through my entire healing process, you can find more info at my website, breakupbestie.com. And if you're new, don't forget to join our private Facebook group so you can connect with other women going through the same thing and seek support. You can search Breakup Bestie Support Group on Facebook to join. Lastly, if you're not already following me on Instagram, I share new tips and support every single day. You can find me at Your Breakup Bestie. Most importantly, hang in there, stay connected with loved ones, be nice to yourself, and remember, it's all going to be okay. I promise.